Good evening, everyone. My paper is titled Emotive Cities Understanding Human Perception of Urban Spaces, a case from South India. Dr. Chitra K is my guide. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it today. We shape buildings, thereafter, the buildings shape us. This profound statement by Winston Churchill encapsulates the notion that our physical surroundings influence our thoughts, behaviors, and ultimately our lives. We adapt to our surroundings, often subconsciously, by aligning our behaviors with the design and layout of the spaces that we occupy. Even though buildings give us shelter from all the elements, collectively they add up to make villages, towns, and cities. Nowadays, every second human being lives in a city. In 1950, only a third of the population lived in cities, and by 2050, 70% of the world's population will be living in urban environments. This trend will have a far reaching consequence for our quality of life, health, and in particular, our mental well being. The urban built environment is intentionally created with messages and meanings in mind. Latent levels of awareness in action and thought are heightened by these cues as the inability to cope grows. So, in cities, inputs such as traffic, pollution, noise, odors, sights, chaos, and other stimuli is high, and this can cause a cognitive overload by elevating the body's basal level of alertness, stress, and preparedness. The physiological stress response is unquestionably beneficial from an evolutionary perspective, as it helps animals to survive. Any threat, like be it from a predator or a depleting food supply or an angry enemy, causes the production of hormones such as cortisols and adrenalins. So these hormones increase the blood flow to the muscles and lungs so that the animals can flee in response to threat. So this is fine, this is beneficial to us, but the issue occurs when this stress reaction does not stop. So prolonged exposure to stress leads these hormones to become higher, and this weakens our immune system and raises our blood pressure. Thus, ongoing issues in the city can cause this detrimental stress and add to the global rise in mental illness. So the study's findings, which were reported in Nature, clearly demonstrated that those who relocate to cities as adults absorb stress differently from those who migrate to a city as children. People residing in cities have significantly higher activity in the amygdala. Amygdala is that green portion which is highlighted in the MRI scan. So, and also regardless where they currently live, individuals raised in significant cities exhibit a more robust response in their cingulate cortex. And this cingulate cortex is the part of the body which controls the amygdala and produces negative emotion. So, due to the hypersensitivity to stress, city inhabitants may be more susceptible to mental illnesses such as schizophrenia. The urban environment can be chaotic, and daily stressors can come from several sources. But is there a connection with the built environment? So, the idea of using neuroscience to help design cities only started in the last 13 years, and the technology to make it possible in the last 6 years. So we are now on the cusp of a revolution in how metrics from neuroscience can inform urban innovation strategies and increase the quality of life of the inhabitants of our cities. So there was this Nobel Prize winning discovery recently, which was the discovery of grid cells, place cells, and head direction cells, and the boundary vector cells, which fire in coordination to compute complex cognitive functions and behavior. An internal map of the environment and a sense of place are thus created by our brains for recognizing and remembering our environment and for our navigation. So it is essential to empirically determine whether exposure to the built environment affects our emotional states. If so, would this emotional response affect our mental health and well-being? How do we find evidence for this, and how can we make our cities respond better to our mental health? So, built environment, as you know, is this branch of study that can be defined through macro elements such as urban design, public areas, land use, transportation systems, and also micro elements such as streets, neighborhoods, and buildings supporting patterns of human activity. Whereas neuroscience is this multidisciplinary branch of biology or the scientific study of the brain and the nervous system, including the study of human thought, emotions, and behavior, which examines the brain-body environment interaction. All right, okay. So my research is under the umbrella of neurourbanism, where I'm looking at experimental urban stress research and emotional mapping. So these are the theoretical constructs on which my research is built upon. Um, on Maslow's theory of hierarchy of needs, on Appleton's prospect and refuge theory, and on Kaplan's attention restoration theory. And the theoretical constructs from urban design is relied mostly on the theory of great public places and the image of the city by Kevin Lynch, and I hope we are all familiar with this. So the act of navigating an environment through walking emerges as a predominant mode through which human beings predominantly encounter and perceive spatial realities. So walking has been used as a method of environmental exposure for the study of person-environment interactions as part of spatial cognition, perception, and behavior to understand their psychological effect in various environments. So I'm trying to use the mode of walking in my observations. So psychophysiological measurements have been formulated on the premise that physiological indicators reflect an individual's psychological traits. So there is a preference of direct assessments of psychophysiological changes over relying on just basic self-reported. So my research question is basically trying to understand how humans perceive urban environments. So this is part of my methodology. So I'm trying to understand how people perceive urban environments by looking at their EEG, their electric brain waves that occur. So there is this mobile EEG device which I'll be using on my participants, and they'll be wearing this device while they experience different kind of urban spaces. So the raw EEG collected is classified into various performance matrices like stress, engagement, interest, excitement, focus, and relaxation. So the experiment started by, this was actually a pilot experiment. The experiment was conducted in Calicut, and it started with a poster seeking volunteers for my experiment. So this is the kind of data that you get through the EEG device, which converts, the software actually converts the raw EEG signals into stress, engagement, excitement, relaxation, focus, and interest. And the average values are also given here. So this was the experimental setup. So before the outdoor experiment, an informed consent was sought from the participants. Each participant was equipped with the 5-channel emotive inside, and the participants were taken inside the car to fit the mobile EEG device on their scalps. And then the participant was asked to sit silent, motionless, closing their eyes to measure the calm state of mind and getting the baseline readings. And then after that, the principal investigator would walk behind the participant as he walks and experience different kind of urban spaces. So the principal investigator had to carry the laptop in Bluetooth range with the device so that all the recordings can be made. So we had a total of 8 participants, 4 women and 4 males, but we had to take 2 participants out of our data because the data collected was inconsistent. So now we have a total of 6 participants. So the different sites that we chose were, the first one was the beach road of Calicut, which is an active urban beach site with buildings on one side and the active beach on the other. The second part was the Sarovaram mini bypass road, which is a green urban street with water body and an array of trees on one side. And the third type was the busy urban street called Mavu Road with buildings flanked on both sides. So this was the kind of values, the average values that we got for as part of the experiment. So these are the results. So here you can see that there is a pattern that you can understand through these results. Specifically, Street A, located along the beach side, exhibited a higher mean excitement level, indicating increased psychological arousal and awareness. The street also registered the maximum mean interest value, suggesting a stronger attraction and reduced aversion from the surrounding environment. The average focus value for the street was comparatively low, implying a lack of concentrated attention towards any particular activity. The inherent liveliness and dynamism of the beach area might explain the elevated arousal and attraction levels. In contrast, street B, characterized by the landscape, demonstrated that the excitement levels and interest levels were high and relaxation levels were also high. Is time up? Sorry. But that was my last slide anyway.
Hello? Hello? Audible?
I can hear you.
So when you are talking about perception, you are talking about studies, you're talking about this gadget on the head. What about weather?
Weather is indeed a factor that we need to consider. Actually, this is just my pilot experiment. I was just trying to see if different kind of urban environments.
Wait a minute. Seasons.
Yes, all that.
What about tropical, subtropical, rainy? What about, I mean, there's a whole gamut of
Yes.
parameters there. And if you pick up Lynch and then you have Jan Gale and you say, okay, these are two, baselines from where we start, I kind of feel that there's more to it. It's much more deeper. Perception of space
Yes.
and use is much more deeper than this.
Yes, definitely, I agree to you. This was just a pilot study done just to understand if the EEG readings can actually, show a difference when you walk through different kind of urban spaces. And while this experiment was being done, it was done on the same day, on the same weather conditions. So we had only 8 participants for the study. So I would take this to the next level. This is just my pilot.
So you're saying that this is basically to test your methodology.
Yes, exactly.
In that case then, I think in your last slide you must have photographs of the street.
In the previous slide I did.
No, next to your findings.
Right. Okay.
I'm reading an abstract diagram and I have no sense of what that street actually is. You're assuming I have gone on that street. I don't know what this Sarovar is. So what do I make of your finding? If you want it to go to professionals to be able to use it in some way, in the way we will design our cities, you need to give it also the qualitative sense that this qualitative sense is like this. Okay, so that's one. That's your immediate thing and you will continue with this. But my bigger problems, I have all these big problems. How relevant is it to even talk about Kevin Lynch today? I'll tell you why I came to this realization. I am a huge fan of Jan Gehl, Kevin Lynch, not gods. But I was driving in the car and my daughter says, oh, I just realized this building is over here. I'm saying, you're 21 years old living in this city. What do you mean you just realized this building is here? She had just started learning how to drive. Only then was she recognizing anything on the streets. Because otherwise, going in the car, sitting in the back, they were looking only like this. So my question is, how much of our cities are now actually going to be perceived, felt, sensed in the manner in which Gale or Lynch have described them? We are at a very different cusp on how we are experiencing the physical environment.
Right.
So how relevant is it to use their literature?
I have a reservation for this because so Lynch does not come into picture, like you said, because if you're driving a car or if you're using motorized transport. But if you are a pedestrian, again the same thing happens. If there are many landmarks, it doesn't become a landmark. One building does not become a landmark, right? I will look into it. I'm just in the initial stages of my research, so I will definitely look into it.
Just for the purpose. You're taking.
Thank you.